Hello everyone, and welcome back. Sometimes, the quietest mysteries are the ones that stay with us the longest. So, welcome back, and thank you for joining me on another calm journey into the strange corners of history and human belief. Today's story begins with something remarkably simple, a body that should have returned to the earth, but did not. No rituals, no preservation process, no careful treatment. Just time, nature, and a surprising outcome that continues to puzzle both the faithful and the scientific community. Across the world, in different cultures and different centuries, people have discovered individuals whose remains stayed intact long after they should have changed and faded. These discoveries were often accidental. Someone opening an old tomb, clearing land for a new building, or visiting a centuries-old shrine. And every time, the reaction tended to be the same, quiet awe, followed by a flood of questions. How does a human body remain untouched by time? Is it a message, a natural wonder, or simply a perfectly aligned set of environmental conditions that we rarely notice? In many communities, such discoveries were seen as signs of purity or spiritual devotion. People would gather around these preserved figures with respect, believing that something greater was at play. Their presence brought comfort, hope, and a sense that the world still held hidden wonders. But the story does not end there. On the other side of the conversation, researchers began to look closely at the environments where these bodies were found. Dry air, frozen ground, mineral-rich soil, sealed spaces with very little oxygen. Each of these can slow down natural changes in remarkable ways. Sometimes, nature acts with such precision that it almost feels intentional. And that is where today's journey begins, right at the intersection of belief and science, where quiet miracles meet natural mechanics. So settle in, breathe slowly, and let us explore why some people, long after their final moment, remain preserved in ways that continue to inspire wonder. When people encounter a naturally preserved body, the first reaction is often quiet astonishment, but the second reaction usually splits into two paths. And that brings us to our next idea, the long-standing debate between spiritual interpretation and scientific explanation. For many communities, especially in earlier centuries, an undecayed body was seen as a powerful sign of goodness, devotion, or spiritual harmony. People believed that such individuals carried a special kind of inner clarity, something so strong that even nature seemed to treat them gently. Stories spread, visitors arrived, and slowly, these figures became symbols of comfort or guidance. In times of uncertainty, people look to them as reminders that the world might hold deeper layers of meaning than what we see on the surface. Meanwhile, researchers, scholars, and later modern scientists stepped into the same conversation with a very different set of tools. Instead of focusing on symbolic meaning, they studied temperature, soil composition, humidity, airflow, microorganisms, the small, quiet forces that shape what happens to a body after life has ended. They asked, could this be nature working with unusual precision rather than something beyond the natural world? What makes the debate so fascinating is that both sides are driven by genuine curiosity. One side sees purpose, the other sees process. One side looks for meaning, the other looks for mechanism. And yet, these perspectives often exist peacefully, side by side, because natural mummies raise questions that are both scientific and deeply human. Some communities continue to honor these individuals as spiritual signs, while scientists continue their patient work, collecting data and refining theories. And in this gentle intersection of belief and evidence, the mystery remains intact, just enough to keep us wondering, but not enough to give us all the answers. In many places, especially within long-standing religious traditions, the discovery of a naturally preserved body is not just surprising, it is deeply meaningful. Communities often respond with a quiet sense of reverence, believing that the preservation reflects the person's purity, compassion, or dedication during life. When these discoveries happen, stories tend to grow naturally around them. People begin to share memories, anecdotes, or teachings associated with the individual. Over time, the preserved body becomes more than just a physical form. It becomes a symbol, a reminder of the values that person stood for, or the gentle influence they had on the people around them. In several cultures, these individuals are thought to represent harmony between the human spirit and the natural world, a sign that their life carried a kind of balance that extended beyond their final moment. Visitors come quietly, lighting candles, offering flowers, or simply standing in peaceful reflection. The presence of the preserved figure often brings comfort, especially to those seeking reassurance or emotional grounding. What is striking is how these communities rarely focus on the scientific how. Instead, they focus on the why. Why this person? Why this place? Why this moment in time? To them, the preservation is not just a phenomenon, but a gentle message woven into the fabric of their beliefs. It strengthens traditions, encourages kindness, and provides a focal point for collective memory. And while not everyone shares the same interpretation, the emotional response is universal: admiration, humility, and a sense that the world still holds quiet wonders that do not need to be solved immediately. Some mysteries simply invite us to slow down and appreciate the space where the natural and the spiritual seem to meet. While spiritual communities look toward meaning, scientists turn their attention to the quiet mechanics of the natural world. And surprisingly, nature has many ways of preserving a body without any human intervention at all, methods that are subtle, precise, and often incredibly effective. Researchers have found that certain environments create the perfect conditions for natural preservation. One of the most common is extreme dryness. In deserts or areas with very low humidity, moisture evaporates quickly, slowing the natural changes that usually take place. Without moisture, the tiny organisms that break things down can't do their work as easily. The body dries, firms, and quietly remains. Other places offer a very different kind of protection: cold. In icy regions, low temperatures act like nature's pause button, slowing all biological processes. A body may remain unchanged for years, even centuries, simply because the cold air keeps everything still. There are also environments where oxygen is limited: sealed tombs, deep caves, or places where the air barely circulates. Without oxygen, normal changes occur much more slowly. Sometimes, soil or surrounding minerals create an even stronger effect, forming a natural shell that protects everything inside. To scientists, these cases are not miracles, but beautifully aligned natural circumstances. The preservation is not intentional. It is the result of environmental harmony. But even with this knowledge, the fascination remains. How did all these factors blend so perfectly? How often does nature arrange conditions so delicately? And this is where the scientific viewpoint becomes just as awe-inspiring as the spiritual one. Because even if the explanation is rooted in temperature, dryness, or chemistry, the outcome still feels extraordinary. Nature, without effort or design, can create something that looks almost unreal, a moment frozen in time, waiting quietly to be discovered. If we zoom in a little closer, we start to see that nature is not random. In these moments at all, it follows patterns. And some of these patterns create an environment where time seems to move more slowly. 3 of the most important factors are dryness, cold, and oxygen levels, each playing its own quiet role. Dryness is one of the strongest natural protectors. In places where the air holds almost no moisture, the body loses water quickly. This gentle drying process stabilizes the skin and tissues, almost like nature guiding everything into a state of stillness. Without moisture, the tiny organisms that normally cause change can't thrive. Everything becomes calm, preserved in a soft equilibrium. Cold environments act differently. They do not dry. They pause. In icy caves, frozen ground, or mountain regions where temperatures stay low year-round, natural changes move at a pace so slow it is almost imperceptible. A body can remain untouched for decades or centuries, simply because the cold air keeps everything quiet. It is like nature lowers the volume on every process happening beneath the surface. Then there are oxygen-poor environments, places where air does not move freely. Inside sealed tombs, deep burial chambers, or tightly enclosed spaces, the lack of oxygen slows the small biochemical steps that normally lead to decomposition. Without oxygen, the usual chain reactions can't begin. Instead, the body rests in a gentle, almost suspended condition. Each of these environments works differently, but the outcome can look surprisingly similar. A body that stays intact, peaceful, and unchanged, far longer than anyone would expect. And what is fascinating is how often these conditions arise naturally, without any planning. To scientists, these cases are a reminder that nature is capable of extraordinary precision. To storytellers, they are a bridge between what we can explain and what still feels mysterious. And to many communities, they stand as quiet evidence that the world still holds room for wonder. Beyond temperature and moisture, there is another quiet force at play, the natural chemistry of the world around us. Sometimes, the soil beneath a body or the air surrounding it contains unique elements that gently slow down the changes that would normally happen over time. These reactions are not dramatic or visible. They work slowly, silently, and with surprising effectiveness. In some regions, the soil is rich in minerals like salt, copper, or certain types of clay. These minerals can draw moisture away or create a surface that protects the body from outside influences. Salt, for example, has a natural drying effect. Clay can form a seal that keeps air out. And mineral-rich soil can alter the environment just enough to make it inhospitable to the tiny organisms that usually break things down. Other areas have air with unusual chemical balances, slightly acidic, slightly alkaline, or filled with minerals from nearby springs or underground deposits. These subtle differences can shift how fast or slow natural processes occur. A small change in pH, for instance, can weaken or completely halt the activity of microbes that normally play a role in decomposition. There are also environments where groundwater interacts with surrounding rocks, creating natural preservatives. When this water touches a buried body, it can leave behind thin mineral layers that act like a protective shield. Over time, these layers can help maintain the body's shape and features far longer than expected. What makes all of this so fascinating is how often it happens by accident. No one planned it. No one created it. Nature simply arranged the right ingredients at the right moment. And the result can look astonishingly close to intentional preservation. To scientists, this illustrates how powerful natural chemistry can be. To communities encountering these bodies long after burial, it can feel like a sign of significance or spiritual meaning. And for us, looking back through history, it is a reminder that the earth itself sometimes becomes part of the story, quietly shaping the mysteries we discover generations later. One of the quietest yet most powerful factors behind natural preservation is the presence or absence of microorganisms. These tiny forms of life usually play an essential role in breaking things down after a person has passed. but in certain rare environments, they simply can't survive. And when they can't survive, the body remains still, unchanged, and unexpectedly intact. Some soils contain natural substances that create an environment too harsh for bacteria to thrive. High salt content, for example, pulls moisture away from the surroundings. Without water, bacteria struggle to function. Other soils contain minerals that naturally inhibit microbial growth, almost acting like gentle barriers that protect whatever rests within them. Cold climates also limit bacterial activity. When temperatures drop below a certain point, microbes become sluggish or stop working entirely. This is why bodies found in icy regions often look remarkably unchanged. Not because time has stopped, but because the microorganisms responsible for change have slowed to almost nothing. There are even cases where groundwater plays a surprising role. Water enriched with minerals can wash through a burial site and leave behind layers that coat the body, creating a kind of natural shield. This subtle protective layer prevents bacteria from spreading and slows down the processes that usually happen beneath the surface. In oxygen-poor environments, the effect becomes even more dramatic. Many bacteria depend on oxygen to survive. When that oxygen is limited inside sealed chambers, deep layers of clay, or tightly packed soil, their activity decreases dramatically. With fewer microorganisms present, the body remains in a calm, undisturbed state. To scientists, this is a landscape shaped by chemistry, climate, and tiny life forms working or not working in harmony. To communities who discover these preserved individuals, it can feel like stepping into a moment from the past, untouched, and quietly waiting. And in both cases, the message is the same. Sometimes, preservation is not a dramatic event. It is the result of small factors aligning perfectly, creating a rare balance that allows a person to remain whole long after time should have changed everything. Every so often, a discovery appears that does not quite fit into any of the usual explanations. The environment is not especially dry. The temperature is not unusually cold. The soil has no remarkable minerals. There is nothing obvious that would prevent natural changes, and yet the body remains intact. These are the cases that draw the most attention, because they sit right in the space between what we understand and what still feels beyond our grasp. Researchers approach these situations with careful curiosity. They examine the surroundings, test samples, and review historical records. Sometimes they find subtle factors, tiny details that might have played a role, a rare microclimate, a hidden airflow pattern, an unexpected chemical trace. But other times, even after all the analysis, the explanation remains incomplete. Not wrong, just partial. As if nature intentionally left a few pieces of the puzzle missing. And this is where the mystery deepens. These unexplained cases become stories passed down through generations, whispered about in small communities, or preserved in local history. People visit out of curiosity, sometimes out of respect, sometimes simply to stand face to face with something that challenges their sense of how the world works. For spiritual communities, these moments feel especially meaningful. The absence of a clear scientific explanation often strengthens the belief that something greater may be at play, not necessarily dramatic or supernatural, but gently significant. A reminder that life can hold quiet wonders that resist neat categories. For scientists, these discoveries become opportunities to learn. They highlight how much we still do not fully understand about the interaction between soil, climate, bacteria, and time. They inspire new research, new theories, and a deeper appreciation for nature's complexity. And for the rest of us, these cases offer a sense of humble awe. They invite us to pause, breathe, and consider that some questions are not meant to be answered quickly. Some mysteries are meant to unfold slowly, allowing space for wonder the kind that does not require certainty to feel meaningful. Whenever a naturally preserved body is found, it never remains just an isolated discovery. Instead, it becomes a small spark that lights up many different paths of belief, storytelling, and scientific curiosity. These cases have a way of weaving themselves into the cultural fabric of the communities that encounter them. In many places, the discovery becomes part of local spiritual tradition. People gather quietly, light candles, or offer simple gestures of respect. The preserved individual is sometimes seen as a symbol of peace, purity, or guidance. Over time, the story grows, blending with existing beliefs and shaping new rituals or teachings. What started as a physical discovery becomes a source of emotional meaning, a reminder of values that a community wishes to protect and carry forward. At the same time, these individuals begin to appear in folklore, gentle tales shared between generations. Some stories highlight the person's kindness, others focus on the unusual nature of their preservation, while some simply express admiration for the mysteries of nature. These narratives are not meant to provide answers. They are meant to offer comfort, curiosity, and a sense that the world still contains quiet wonders. Scientists approach the same cases with a different kind of fascination. To them, each preserved body is a natural experiment, a puzzle with clues, hiding in soil samples, climate records, and chemical interactions. These discoveries prompt new research questions. Why did preservation occur here? Why this person? Why this specific combination of natural elements? And even when the questions have no complete answers, the process deepens our understanding of the delicate, intricate ways the environment interacts with the human body. What makes these cases special is how they bring together people with very different perspectives. Believers find meaning. Storytellers find inspiration. Researchers find puzzles. And somehow, all three coexist without contradicting one another. Each perspective adds another layer to the mystery, turning a simple discovery into something that connects emotion, culture, and science. After all the stories, the research, the theories, and the quiet reflections, we are left with a question that has followed humanity for centuries. When a body remains naturally preserved, what exactly are we witnessing? Is it a sign of something beyond us? Or is it the natural world arranging itself with extraordinary precision? For many people, these discoveries feel like gentle reminders that life may hold deeper layers of meaning. They see harmony, purity, or spiritual resonance in the stillness of a preserved figure. To them, the preservation is not an accident. It is a message, a symbol, a reflection of a life lived with intention. And whether or not science can fully explain the process, that sense of meaning remains untouched. For scientists, the fascination is just as real, but grounded in a different language. They see systems at work: climate, chemistry, microorganisms, and the countless small interactions that shape the world around us. When all these elements fall into perfect alignment, preservation becomes possible. And the more we learn about these cases, the more we realize how intricate and delicate these systems truly are. Yet, even with all our knowledge, some cases remain unanswered, not because they defy science, but because nature is far more complex than we often imagine. Instead of one clear explanation, there may be dozens of small factors working together in ways we do not fully understand. And that is the beauty of this mystery. It allows room for both belief and evidence. It creates a quiet space where curiosity replaces certainty, where wonder stands beside reason. Instead of choosing one side, we are invited to look at both the emotional truth and the scientific truth, and appreciate how they can coexist without canceling each other out. In the end, whether we call these moments miracles or marvels of nature, They remind us of something timeless. The world still has the ability to surprise us gently, quietly, and completely. As we reach the end of today's quiet journey, we are reminded that not every mystery needs a final, definite answer. Some stories are meant to be held gently, like a small light in the dark, something that stays with us, not because it explains everything, but because it invites us to wonder a little more about the world around us. Natural preservation sits right at that crossroads. It is a place where belief and science can sit side by side without conflict, each offering its own way of understanding. Whether you see these cases as reflections of spiritual meaning or as examples of nature's remarkable balance, they carry the same message: there is still beauty in the unknown. Thank you for spending this calm moment with me today. I hope it brought a bit of peace, a bit of curiosity, and maybe even a sense of connection to the deeper stories hidden in our world. If you enjoyed this gentle exploration, feel free to join me again next time. We will continue uncovering mysteries in a way that is soft, thoughtful, and easy to listen to. Wishing you a quiet, restful day ahead. Take care, and I will see you in the next story.